I'm still finding the humidity and the sclerotinia mold. Now it's been several days, and remember these ones were small like these ones. And now they've grown up to a size that I'm willing to cut them down just to make sure they don't get any mold on them, because I'm betting if I let these go another day, I'm going to start seeing the sclerotinia work its way up. But so far, I've been picking them and haven't seen hardly any problem at all. Now on some of these older blocks, I've definitely noticed, like, all these second flushes didn't work out for the most part. They all have it up on the sides, mostly. Where it wants to, the mushrooms want to grow off the side and then rub up against where the infected vermiculite basically was, and then gets right back on there. In the same manner when I flip the blocks over and knock the vermiculite up on top of them. But you can see on some of these now, I've taken the bags and split them down one side and folded it over like a collar. I lost a pin there. And hopefully that'll let some of these mushrooms grow out without being in contact with the humid plastic, which is letting the sclerotinia get an advantage. Now over here, you can see I put some bags down and left a bit more bag on it, about 3 inches. And also I did not wipe out the mycelium on the inside rim. The reason because I've noticed now that a lot of these bags that had the dry mix on it is still too dry for the king oyster mycelium underneath of it to grab it before the mold mycelium can get to it. Some of these it has colonized for the most part, like this one's pretty much grabbed it all. But this one, for instance, I don't know how we can see, but there's a tiny bit of green mold in there. It actually seems the green mold is what's getting the edge when it's like this. I can see some growing on that, so I'm going to take a large spoon and kind of scoop off the inside portion of these and separate the bad part out. But hopefully now, using some of this extra mycelium on the outside will, and taller bag portion will increase the humidity in there enough that it will eat up the sawdust that's on top of it. It's uncolonized. But what I've done to hopefully prevent that from even being a future issue is now 3 or 4 days before you're getting ready to take the bags down here and open them up, go ahead and give them a really hard ruffle all around the top and try to knock it off as much of that dry sawdust as you can. And then in those 3 or 4 days, that sawdust will recolonize in a nice humid sterile environment instead of in the open air around here, and it shouldn't be a factor at all. You can also see where the pins are forming in some center portions of these. It's a bit more dry, but that's alright, it'll fruit off that. So I'm going to try to clean some of the uncolonized sawdust off these ones and fix them up. And hopefully I'll see some better results on these since I got to them a little earlier. You can definitely tell a lot of these have pins all over. It might actually be wise to cut the collars of these and drop it down so there's no chance of it growing up to the side. But it's pretty much beat down a lot of these for the most part. The pins are strong enough, it seems, that it just will not overtake them if the mycelium is young and strong enough. So I'll give these a few days and see how it looks. Well, these ones where I split the bag down after I remove the top seem to not be faring too well, just because the center of them is drying out too much where the mold can still get it. I've had to take out a few Well, these two shelves at least. Put them outside my back porch. I think I can still get a flush out of them because the green mold isn't so exploratory. It kind of stays where it originates, so I probably won't get any of that on the mushrooms. But I can't have these down here if they're going to get moldy in the center. You can see here we're a little bit of olive green mold on it. These ones are doing okay. I'm probably going to still cut them down early because I'm sure they'll have the similar problems. I think I already see a tiny little spot of the sclerotina developing on the stems of one of these. I had to remove the centers of these, of course, and I think they'll finish out before the mold gets to it because they were already pretty far ahead. And then these ones are, they are colonizing the dry mix in the center. Well, I'm still not sure it's going to colonize it fast enough because you can see some of these I dumped quite a bit of it in there. So it'll take it a few days. But it definitely is grabbing it. And the bags that I was rough about shaking the dry mix off onto it are colonizing it. But the problem is, in those 3 days after I've already done it, more of the mix gets dry on the inside of the bag, so you're still always going to get some that falls. So what occurred to me is, let's eliminate the openness of the bags and do things kind of similar before, where I just cut slits on the sides of the bags, which, if you remember, that doesn't always make a great mushroom because the mushroom comes off sideways and produces a tougher, larger stem to support itself. So you always want to get mushrooms developed vertically if you can. So what I've done is I've punctured the tops of the bags, pressed all the air out, rolled the bag under. As you can see here, it's all rolled up. Try to roll the filter on the underside and the hole that you poked in on the other side, just so you don't get a mushroom growing up the bottom eventually, which might still happen no matter what. And I took a razor knife and made 4 slits in the plastic. I scored a little bit into the block, but that doesn't hurt it. And hopefully that'll be exactly what I need to get things going without a casing layer. That way the humidity stays in, there's no parts of it drying out, everything's already fully colonized, well colonized. And because it's the outside of the bag rather than the top of the block, I'll probably get pins on it quicker. So it'll be interesting to see how this works. I'm also going to try doing this on the next shelf. Instead of spacing these bags, I'm going to put them close together just to see if the closeness of the bags really wasn't a factor, as long as the sclerotinia and other molds don't get a start. It's still humid. I don't think the humidity is going away. It's going to be a rainy summer. It's been in the 90s quite a bit. So I'm just going to have to deal with this. If I can replicate these conditions in the winter time when I'm growing, it'll make my life easier because then I'm not misting and I'm not yet applying a casing layer. So that's a great deal of work and time saved. So let's take a little break and see what these blocks look like. These blocks that I have the highest hopes for. See what they produce. I really like how these upside down blocks are turning out. I'm actually starting to get some pins on them. Kind of hard to tell. You can see even where some of the plastic has pulled up away from it. It's colonizing well underneath, even where I cut into the block too with the knife. And then over here, I have blocks where instead of cutting slits into them, I've used my arrowhead and poke probably about, maybe 30 holes. Can't plunge it too far with the arrowhead in the sawdust because it's much more dense than like punching a straw log, for instance. But in only a couple of days, the mycelium's grown up and taken over the cut portions. So I expect these two methods to work just fine, as long as that. The only issue I could see possibly is that they might, the mushrooms might even still dry out a little bit because I'm not misting, even though the humidity is really high in here. But they might not too, just because a lot of the moisture is being contained within the bag and not getting evaporated through the top. You see, in some of these, I've taken a piece of tape and kind of folded it over the top a little bit, kind of tacoed a little bit, just to try to keep some of the moisture in there, because I still had to throw out all the ones over here because the once I split the top off, it still dries out to the point where mold will grab it before the king oyster mycelium recovers and finishes the top. And there's at least some good news with some of these over here that I didn't wipe the outside of the mycelium off and had higher walls. Most of them are doing pretty good. I still have had to dug out some spots of mold on top, but pretty much it's under control. This one you can see it's pinning all over the surface, even in towards the center, so that's good. Now I saw pins on one of these upside down ones. Where was it? There we go. You can see the pins starting to form in the corner here, so in about 3-4 days, I'll definitely know if these are working out. And I think they will. So let's check back in a few days and see how this is all going.